No.
Is this guy.
Okay. Hello and thanks for staying with us. It's time again for Political Platform on Reaper FM. My name is Amit Chernoff. We have two of my colleagues with me this morning. We have Abulo Semoegu and Teve TF. Gentlemen, welcome to the show.
Amici, good morning, and good morning, dear listener.
Amici, good morning to you. Good morning, Nigerians. Dear listener, clearly, we discussed it here yesterday. But the president did not get everything that he wanted from the National Assembly. He got some. Most of what he wanted, at least the 2023 budget is out for him to sign if he agrees with the 1.3 trillion that has been added to it, which we had discussed before. And then he got the supplementary bill.
Appropriation bill for 2022.
It was also approved. I think the finance bill also scaled through. It's the restructuring. It scaled through in the House, but the Senate have deferred further legislative action until next year. Definitely that would affect much more than we expect because for the federal government to go looking for money for even the supplementary and even the 2023 budget, perhaps one of the ways they wanted to go about it was to restructure what they already have with the CBN and see how they can do further things. Clearly, going by the fact that we all know that China and the rest have stopped borrowing. So even the treasury bills, the bonds, when they put them in the market, how much do they get out of it? So it's tightening up more and more. Perhaps the good thing is we are seeing a rebound in oil production. The benchmark now is put at $75
up from 70.
From 70 per barrel. Let's see how the administration will run with it. But clearly, like we said yesterday, the outlook doesn't look good.
Okay.
And when you ask, when budgets are passed, and all of that, everybody I remember those years, by February, March, once anything you want, they say, they've not passed budget.
We are waiting for the budget. They said the budget was passed, but the lawmakers added over 1.3 trillion, saying there are other expenses the executive forgot to include, National Population Commission, the military security agencies, name it. They said they felt they needed to do it and they increased those expenditure. That's what they're saying. When we scrutinize the budget, we now see the other ones they didn't tell us.
Amici, we said here the other day, if they want to call it budget padding, they should call it that way. If they want to say their own interests have been removed, they should address it that way. But my worry, Amici, is that this budget the addition did not go into proper scrutiny. They just resumed 28 after the 2 days public holiday, and what we have is an additional over 1.3 trillion naira added to the budget. Nigerians are asking questions, and Amici, I want to be part of that. Those people asking the question: what have we done with the monies we have been borrowing? The president is requesting for money again from the CBN, and
he got the approval.
And it will take this country over 40 years to pay back that loan from the CBN. 40 years, Amici. How many years is that? For a child that is 1 year old.
The president spent 22 trillion, and those coming after him will pay back.
What assurance do you have
that those coming after him? Moratorium. Based on
3
what
years
he's planning.
3 years.
There won't be a payback for the next 3 years, but from the next 4 years up to the
2027, that's when the payment will begin. And I pity the person that will be president then, because Amici, we have said severally that we need to see evidence of what you are doing with the borrowing. The second Niger bridge is not up to 300 billion. The Abuja-Kano road, how much is it?
Just about over 800 billion.
Now, where are all this money going to? Is it just for recurrent? Okay, look at the Speaker of the House of Representatives was responding to ASU, and they said they've made provision for 170 billion for welfare packages and 300 billion for revitalization fund in the 2023 budget. Yes, that one is clear. We can see it. But the money the president is requesting for, he said, is to cushion the effect of the flooding and what again?
Floods, restore critical infrastructure.
But what happens to the emergency funds in ecological funds? What happens to the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs was established last year, and I'm sure they have funds for emergency.
2019.
2019, yeah, okay.
Yeah,
And I'm sure they have funds for emergency. And the NIMET has given us forecast. They've given us a clue that there might be flooding. So what happened to the funds that were reserved for this event that were applied for supplementary budget to use flooding?
Okay, let's piece it together for you. Tebe rightly mentioned that the government originally, because this administration had relied heavily on borrowing to source money to execute its programs and policies. It usually tells us we are going to get this from Sukuk, we get these things from Eurobond, we get from IMF, we get from World Bank, we get from China, we get from other nations, we get from bilateral, multilateral institutions, we get from domestic borrowing, we issue bonds, we go to the money markets. But from what we have seen, what we are reading now, they didn't get as much as they wanted. Now, there's the last resort. If you make plans, usually when you budget based on, you plan to spend what you earn. But this administration plan to spend what they didn't earn, and they hope to get the shortfall from borrowing many sources. Apparently, it didn't work, and they went to the last resort. Ways and means. It means CBN printing money. The government will run to the CBN and say, August CBN, please, we need money. Our plans didn't work, and CBN will go and print the money.
No, I want to break it down. I would like you to break it down very well for the listener. What is the meaning of ways and means?
That's the
terminology.
That's what I'm
the
saying.
terminology for Oga print money.
Yes, in technical terms, it's called ways and means, but in ordinary terms, it's called CBN print money for us to spend with the government. And so, over time, CBN has printed over 22 trillion for the government, and they've been spending. Now, we told you last week on this program that there are laws guiding execution of ways and means, that CBN printing money. First is that whatever you're borrowing to the government must not be above 5% of the GDP of last year. For instance, if the federal government is asking for over 800 billion from CBN, they will look at Nigeria's GDP for 2021, and they must not give government more than 5% of that GDP. That's what the law says. And that is what the CBN has not been doing under Godwin Emefiele. And the law also says that if we borrow you less than 5% of our GDP of last year, for this year, if you must pay it back next year. But this did not happen. Government did not pay back. Government continued going back to the CBN, and CBN continued to print money and give government. And now they have run into this trouble. They have accumulated over 22 trillion. What do we do with it? Now the administration said, let's go to the National Assembly. Let's see whether we can find a way around it. And some senators objected yesterday and said, there are ways the Nigerian government, by our laws, our constitution, can spend money through appropriation from the National Assembly. The appropriation bill or supplementary appropriation bill, what the president was asking yesterday through that request was to restructure that loan, that 22 trillion, instead of paying it, because they have failed to pay it when they're supposed to pay it, they want to restructure it and spread it over 40 years. But the next 3 years, no repayment. So Buhari will be in Daura when the repayment will be made. Some of us may not be alive when the government will be paying back this money. And that is different.
That's different from $45 billion.
Yes, that is different.
Foreign loans.
From $45 billion the government got from all these places, including China, including Eurobond. And some of the senators asked the government, what did you do with this loan? You didn't include the detail. If you're seeking for approval, you have already spent this money. Ordinarily, we should appropriate for it, but you didn't. You spent it, and you're coming back to us to tell us, okay, just sign and backdate and everything. And they said no. The Senate president wanted to push it through, But the other senators sat on his neck and said, no, history will not be fair to us if we allow this scale through.
Yes, clearly, perhaps those details will be coming in when the committee engages the CBN governor, the finance minister, and the other public officers have been invited to explain, the details as it were. Clearly, there are some things that are not known or have not been made public. So we'll get to know. We'll raise a number of them. The issue of because if it's what's it called, a recovered loot, they will tell you they are putting it into
Second Niger.
Second Niger.
Abuja, Kano,
every money
Lagos,
they say they are putting it into this project, and even the second Niger has not been completed in fullness the way it should have. So there are indeed several questions that need to be asked, which the Senate is asking, and then that will provide the administration the opportunity to make those explanations. I also want to look at the supplementary budget that was approved, over 800 billion. I want to look at the projects that are in that, because the president has set up a committee headed by the Minister of Water Resources and given it, I think, 90 days or so, up to March or thereabout, to be able to submit their report. So if you have a supplementary budget and for them to work on the impact of the flooding, and advise government on what to be done, and now you are having a supplementary budget way before the committee, where the committee submits its report. So what it actually,
we want to spend this money before we
what actually,
and we are going in June, but we want to spend it May. But we want to spend it. We must spend it.
Because look at the East-West Road. Thank God the NDDC, intervened, is fixing. There were major destructions, that in some places and all of that. But we need to know exactly what is in that supplement. By in the next 24 hours or 48, if the president signs, we should have the finance minister giving us a breakdown on some of these things. So we'll get to interrogate and look further into, what actually, I want to know, for instance, what they are going to use to do in Benue State, for instance.
Because they were victims.
A major epicenter,
they said it's capital. What are they reconstructing?
Exactly.
Is it the road that leads into North Bank or what?
No, maybe it's the dam in Adamawa to help reduce the Lagdo.
A great chunk of this money will go to Minister of Water Resources. The others to works and housing. So we need explanation, like you said.
When we discuss this issue, we expect the government people to listen and know that this is a kind of feedback to them. We need total breakdown of what these loans are going to be used for. Nigerians need to know, because you said you are putting out policies from the CBN to cash withdrawal policy. You have redesigned Naira to reduce the flow of money in the economy. Yet this is an avenue where money will be in the hands of Nigerians. Amici, you are going into an election and you are the ruling party. You are in government and you are applying for loans that will be used for capital projects. I know capital projects will involve laborers, will involve contractors, will involve, So we need a list of these capital projects. Is it bridges you want to construct? I know. If you look around Abuja, a lot of bridges are ongoing. I don't know for other states. I don't know if you have these capital projects in other states ongoing, that the money is needed to fix them. But if that is going on, we need to know. The Ministry of Works need to come out clearly to tell us. Ministry of Water Resources need to come out to tell us clearly which dams are you creating, which channel are you creating to reduce future flooding. Because you have told us a chunk of the money is to fix the damage caused by the flooding. So we need to know this is open. Open governance is good for us so that we'll know which way we are headed.
These are the questions the National Assembly should ask. Some of them are asking. The Senate President tried to overrule. In fact, she tried to overrule Senator
Betty
Afiafia, but she stood her ground and he forgot that there are peers, they are equals. He's just first among equal. Any of them could sit on that seat as Senate President. And the Senate President does not give you the right to shut down.
I was personally disappointed.
If the senator is making some sense, and that's why some other senators stood up and told him, Mr. Senate President, it won't happen.
Yes, I was personally disappointed in the way the Senate President reacted, because he made it to look like a party issue. Betty Afia of the PDP. And that is what we keep discouraging. Like, for example, when you talk about the monetary policy issue, I won't want Nigerians to see it as targeting a particular political candidate. So let us look at these national issues on a table where we know that it's supposed to be for the benefit of the ordinary person.
Absolutely.
Which, regardless of whichever political party he belongs.
You know, it's good that the National Assembly is better late than never. I know they have different committees that should have asked these questions long before now in oversight. But they failed to do that. They are asking those questions at this point. Perhaps, it's like they always say, it's better late than never. And I mentioned the report will also have indicated that the 22-point-something trillion was actually over a period of 10 years.
Yes.
And if you look at 10 years, Buhari has been in office for seven years.
Is
plus.
it 10 years?
Yes, 2007.
You know, so which means
the bulk of
even
it
the
came under this administration.
you know, which means even the PDP administration, you know, was part of this. So it's not it shouldn't have been a partisan thing. It should have been because it involves PDP, involves APC. Some persons that are in Labour Party and all of them were also part of collecting.
But the bulk of the borrowing from ways and means came from this administration. And we talk of building strong institutions in Africa, in Nigeria. We said, let's not build strong personalities, let's build strong institutions. But we have also forgotten that even when you have strong institution, if you have a weak personality, it can ruin that institution. Take a look at what is happening at the central bank. We have a central bank guided by law. We have the CBN Act as amended 2007 that specifies how things could be done. The governor, MFLA, has completely violated those provisions of the CBN Act. And it's a typical example of a weak person destroying an institution. So if you build institutions without building the right persons, it takes you to nowhere. So we have to find ways of building, as we are building institutions, we're also building people that will run these institutions, not run it aground.
Indeed, a friend of mine, Dele Kiremi, he wrote an article on that. In fact, he sent it to me yesterday, and I was reading through how he was emphasizing that people say we should build, strong institutions. But then, what of the leadership? That the leaders are the ones who will make those institutions strong, or not. And perhaps this is the time to also look at what the DSS were asking. Perhaps the DSS knew some of these facts, some of these things, and we were not aware.
And we shouted them down.
And now, perhaps
they raised allegations of terrorism financing and economic sabotage on the name of the CBN governor, Godwin Emefiele.
I think we need to stop thinking on the party lines, thinking that everything the government does or the opposition talks about is about the party. No, you saw what happened in England. The prime minister resigned because of economic issues. It's not because she's a conservative, or it's not because of the Labour Party quarreling her. No, because of the interest of the common man. That's what I said earlier on. Every policy is supposed to be a pro-people policy. The pro-people policy is what makes a nation move forward. If people begin to tag arguments or complaints about policies to be partisan, then I'm sorry, I don't know where we're heading for.
Don't forget the opposition that pushed that
some persons will say
from within the party, within her own party. The party was looking at one national interest, was also looking at whether the party with her can win the next elections. So they said, look, this woman cannot lead us.
Thank you.
This way, so it's better you step aside.
Sacrifice her. Okay, let's share some of the mails we have sent to our email platform when we come back. More personal analysis.